Hi everyone and welcome to Rage Print. I'm Andy and we've got a special interview today with some of the two maddest people I've ever met. John's joining me for this one as well. So if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
We maybe should have figured out who went first, but
Maybe. That involves organisation, which apparently we don't do well.
Yeah. I'm Tom. I'm UK based. I'm a very prolific droid builder, and probably one of a very small handful of people who are crazy enough to attempt the particular droid that we are going to talk about this evening. So yeah.
And my name is Michael McMaster. I'm Central California based, and I've built a couple droids over the years, and one of these, whatever this is.
Yeah, I guess it's worth saying that is the subject of the chat.
Yeah, if you haven't gathered it from Tom's background or his t-shirt or
the Viper probe droid. Now these were both based off of Droid Division files. I know Mike pioneered the animation and moving of it, but I guess to you, Mike, first, obvious question: why? Why did you start this?
I was actually in the middle of building one of Michael Baddeley's choppers, the animated version, and Dave Moog sends me a message saying, "Hey, would you like to be a beta tester? I know you like to build big things." And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "A probe droid." I instantly dropped everything and said yes. I had wanted one since I saw it in the movie theaters. So 40 years I had wanted to build a probe droid, but never had the inclination to tackle it until he dangled STL files in front of me, 3D modeling files.
Excellent. And Tom, why?
The easiest one for that is, well, why not? It's an Imperial probe droid.
Yeah.
I like droids that other people don't have. I like doing the different droids. And as I say, the Imperial probe droid, there's a handful of them across the world. There's one full-sized one in the UK, which is mine. There's, I think, 2, maybe 3 in America. And there's even less that actually drive around and are actually animated to the level that we've done. So it was a why not? I can do it. Let's do it.
Certainly eclipses most builds most people have done.
Yeah. Well, I've seen it at Celebration, and it's just, you cannot miss it. It's just the noise, the size of it, and as it's coming down the thoroughfare, it's just like, okay, yeah, I'm going to get out of the way. It's like coming against a truck. You're not going to win against that one.
Yeah, that is the funniest thing about it. The one thing we discovered early on, we've always had to have droid handlers when we go to conventions, and ask people, excuse us, pardon us, because conventions are usually shoulder to shoulder. The probe droid, there was something I'd never seen in my life. People just parted for us.
Yeah.
If we were moving forward. They'd hear it coming, they'd look over their shoulders, and literally that, oh my God, and jump out of the way. And we could go anywhere in the con. We would purposely go to areas that were crowded just to see if we could get through. We got through effortlessly, no problem.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I was at Celebration in London back in April this year, and it is. I get people say, "Oh, I'll come be spotter for you," and they're sort of like they try and walk in front of it to move people. I'm like, no, come back here, stand with me, but you need someone to move people out of the way. No, I don't. Just trust me on this one. And it is the parting. It's the parting of the mass crowds, isn't it? It's so surreal. Anybody who wanted to get anywhere, they were sort of like, "Can you just go over there? I'm in a bit of a rush. Can you just head over there?" And they'll just literally follow you.
I learned from seeing McMaster's in Anaheim, and I got to drive it and see it out there as well. So when Celebration came to London and I wanted to get Chopper through the heavy crowds there, I followed Tom out of the hall because that was the easiest way for me to get to the entrance, to get up to the steam area and do a session up there. So yeah, it certainly is a crowd mover.
Yeah, I must admit, me and Jason did the same thing. We just followed Tom just so he could get to various places on the convention hall. Just like, yep, there's Pro Droid, follow it. Drive the droids behind it.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's the reaction that you get. You drive past a queue of people who are queuing up in a line for a panel or something like that, and instantly everyone turns, everyone gets their phones out, their cameras. And it's just everyone's like that, in awe of this probe droid just moving across. It's one of the most amazing feelings, and it is so surreal. Even now, it's so surreal when it happens.
I suppose the big question is to both of you is, how many times have you been asked, is that the one from Empire Strikes Back? As in, is that actually the one from Empire Strikes Back? Because I know I get it a lot with like R2 and Chopper. So, is that the one from the films? Like, no, it's one I built. But
I didn't have as many of those comments, but I did have at Celebration, people were asking, wow, it really is impressive. You should have it in a TV show, which we just smiled and kept going. You know, a month and a half earlier, 2 months earlier, we had shot our scene in The Mandalorian. And so it was kind of funny that people would say, oh yeah, well, and I'm thinking, well, in a year, you'll get your answer.
And I guess the really nice thing about that for me was when they did that reveal at Celebration, being sat next to you and seeing you grin as the scene comes up.
Yeah, I was probably a little emotional at that point. Yeah, that was really, and it looked better than I thought it would. I mean, people thought it was animated. They said, "Oh, look, the legs are moving. It's got to be animated." I'm thinking, well, the legs did move. We stuck it on the end of a camera boom to fly it in. It was on a dolly and a camera boom. So one operator was bringing it in, and then I was operating the legs, and then an operator from Legacy FX was doing the head and the lights.
I must admit, I saw the scene in it, and I assumed it was CG. Just because of the way it was done, just assumed it was CG. It didn't even click. It might have been your one. When I found out after, like, that's brilliant. That's perfect. But it's been used.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I saw it, it was amazing to know that I've got an identical twin sister to it.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I categorically know that my Imperial probe droid is 100% screen accurate. You can't get any better than that.
There's no denying that now.
No,
Dave Moog is a very happy camper because he didn't even anticipate that.
Yeah.
No, it was amazing for all of us, and when it did air for the three of us to be in the same location at the same time, it was just it was such an amazing, just oh my god sort of like moment. It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant.
It was so fun during setup in London to be standing next to you while you're putting it together, and Dave Moog is next to me and he's just shaking his head. I said, well, you're going to have to drive it, you know, and he was just blown away. I mean, he said, I never in a million years imagined it would go this far, you know, this quickly.
Yeah.
You give me terrifying flashbacks now to us trying to build the thing.
I've blanked all that out.
Yeah, the 3 days in the run up to Celebration London is just a black void in my memory. I don't even want to. I don't want to go back there.
Yeah, we were talking just all the way up to the last minute. You know, you were still working on things the same as I was before we went, you know, to have it on the show. I was still putting arms together and wiring it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the scariest picture that I've got is the body of the probe droid and the legs of the probe droid at 10 o'clock the Wednesday morning before he's loaded up in the van the Thursday evening with not a single drop of paint on him.
I remember that.
How I managed to pull that one off, I do not know. That was
superhuman effort.
Yeah,
that was some seriously long days. That was not stopping for anything. And luckily,
the morning you unloaded, you looked tired and yet relieved. You had that look like I made it. I'm here.
Yeah,
It did look a
Yeah.
bit of a daze.
It was a complete daze. I was running on empty. The tank had been empty for about 3 days. As I say, how I managed it, that Celebration London was my deadline. It was by hook or by crook. It was going to be a Celebration.
And then all that went away the minute you turned on the remote. The minute you drove out on the show floor, you were beaming. You were floating behind it. It was great.
That was such an. But yeah, Celebration London was the first time I drove it. The first time I'd seen it complete. It was just yes. It was that yes moment.
So I guess what makes the building of a project this big different to other projects you've done, to like the normal builds you've done?
It's the
shift.
scale.
It's the scale. The scale. Yeah, totally the scale. I mean, you take an R2 droid at what 21 kilos, give or take a couple either way. Chopper, I'm pointing that way because Chopper's sat in the corner of the dining room. He comes in at about 17, 18 kilos. The probe droid, before you've done anything, just in filament alone, is 50 kilos. Before you've done anything. I'm not sure what the weight of your base and your stand is, Michael. But by the time I've got the weight of the stand, the frame, the batteries, the drive motors for the base, all told as a complete unit, he comes in at about 250 kilos, quarter of a ton.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
there's nothing else like that.
No, not at all. You've got so much weight up high. You've got to have so much weight in that base to counterbalance that, to make it safe. When you've got thousands of people within 18 inches of this thing, you don't want that falling over. No. So there's a lot of deliberate weight and a lot of deliberate counterbalance in the base to make it safe.
Stop safely as well. Without it tipping as you stop.
Yeah. Having driven Michael's in Anaheim for a bit, there is a scary moment when you stop suddenly that you think, is it? No, it's fine. It's just waving. It's just waving. I'm safe. I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of flexibility in it, and that part, your heart stops when you stop quickly and you see it kind of bob a little bit. But...
Yeah. It's also balancing that top speed. When I was setting up the remote at Celebration and driving it around for the first time, I just kept nudging the speed down and down and down and down. And I ended up at about 33% of the maximum speed. And it's still is slightly above walking pace. Yeah, it'd be scary to think how quickly he'd be going if I run him at 100%. I haven't got those sort of guts.
Runway.
Spare runway. You don't want to see other people's guts either.
No.
You drive through them.
I know they have R2 top speed races for R2D2. I'm happy with the speed that mine's at. A little bit over walking pace, I'm happy.
So other than scale, I mean, how do you plan printing it and knowing that where do you store the parts to start with, I suppose, when you printed it? And is it just big boxes sat in the corner? Are you dry fitting it as you're going along?
I was assembling mine as parts came off. I would, like the body, I started with the body, and they're segmented pie-shaped pieces. So I would just, as one came off, I would start another print, because the prints, you got to realize, you're talking 10, 20, 30 hours or more to print parts. So you got plenty of time in between. So you're sanding that part that just came off, you glue it to the next piece, and then pretty soon you have half the body, and then you have to print the other half and then put those together. And then you start on the head. And then I had other printers that were working on the detail parts, because once you get it finally off the ground and elevated, then you can start gluing on details, and you're painting and priming, and there's lots to do in between.
I started on the head on mine rather than the body. And I think the main bulk of the head is I did it in 12 parts, so like an upper ring and a lower ring. So I matched it, so I was printing both parts of the ring or both parts of that segment that then got glued together. And then I ended up with six head segments from the original 12. I ended up with 6 head segments. They then went into 2 segments of 3, so I've got 2 halves of the head, and then that got glued together. And then obviously I could start on the head, and then the details that fitted on the smaller, so the eyes, as they were coming off the smaller printers, they were getting finished and put in place. And then started thinking about electrics. And once you've got those done, you then need to start thinking about lenses. So that's all going on, and then you're moving on to the body, and there was some, for me, I don't know your timings, but in the center of the body is a very big central core, and that central core is getting on to be about 12, 13 kilos just for 4 parts. And I was like 4 or 5 days per section because they were 3 or 4 kilos each, and there's four pieces to make up the central core. So already I'm looking at 2 or 3 weeks of printing just on 4 parts.
So I suppose
And then,
is this, what sort of printers are you using?
for me, I was running a CR10, an S5, and 2 Ender 3s at the time of doing them. He's not designed for small printers. Yes, you can scale it down. You can do a 29% studio scale, which will obviously fit on the smaller printers, but this is one of those droids where it needs a big printer. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no other way to do it. It needs a big printer. So yeah, for me, he was printed across 4 printers.
Yeah, I used 3 CR10 S5s, and at the time I had a Pulse, which I was using to print nylon. So I printed some of the detail parts on the head were printed in nylon just because I had the spare printer.
Guess a follow on from that then with what you were using. With the advent of faster printers, bigger printers coming out soon as well, do you think it's going to be easier to do projects like this on a print time scale in future?
Oh yeah, well, Elegoo has just announced an enormous printer, 800 by 800 by 1,000, which is unimaginable, and for a relatively low cost. I'm not sure how they're doing it. I guess we'll wait after the Kickstarter and see how it actually goes. But a printer like that, I could definitely have combined some parts and had that over in the corner just printing larger pieces. So fewer segments. And maybe it would definitely print a little bit faster than the CR10s. As far as the small detail pieces, if I had a bamboo printer, those things are like lightning. I saw my first one operate at Celebration London, and I had no idea they were that fast. I thought people had sped the footage up when you watch them. No, that they're a blur when they're running. So yeah, we could have cut our time maybe by a third, maybe even by a half. I don't know, but that will definitely be helpful as these newer machines evolve.
Certainly at the time that you built yours and I built mine, the S5 was really the biggest printer available. And again, you can't, because it's the old style bed slingers, you can't run them super fast because you've got so much weight and inertia moving. When some of these parts are getting towards 3.5 kilos towards the end of the print, that's a lot of weight that is moving on that bed. So you have to run it slow. You don't have much of a choice about that. It is what it is. I mean, if they bring out, I'd like to say if they bring out a large sort of like 450, 500 mil bed that is a fast Core XY printer, I'd love to see more of these. So
You've spent over $1,000 just in PLA, just in material.
Yeah.
And that's before electronics and lights and lenses and everything else.
And big motors and steel work for the frame. It's a definite commitment. It's a definite commitment that you've got to make to a project like this on this scale.
And a lot of disciplines, and some of which even 3D print builders are not accustomed to, just because of the size.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the
Yeah.
steel work and things like that are things you don't typically see in a lot of droid builds.
No, I
No.
suppose in droid build you see something like that. Be Wally, where he has the steel frame inside him. But certainly no other droids 3D printed have that much going on inside them, really.
Not that requires some quite heavy welding and quite structural welding and supports and bits and pieces like that, certainly.
Lessons learned and how they apply to any future projects you may have completed or be doing in future. What did you learn from doing the project of building the Viper droid?
I learned that I could actually do it. I mean, you know, there's a certain confidence that you gain when you build something like this. I wasn't looking to do it, but Dave Moog offered, and I thought, well, I'll try it, not even knowing if I could finish it. And so now I certainly have built confidence that, yeah, we can build other large things. I just finished a Maximilian from the movie The Black Hole. I probably wouldn't have tackled that unless I had done this one first, because then I knew that I could, because it's another enormous droid. It takes, that robot took 48 rolls, 48 1 kilogram rolls of PLA. So it is every bit as big as the probe droid, just organized a little differently. That's all.
For me, probably the biggest learning curve was how genuinely crazy I actually am.
Oh, we already knew that.
Yeah, but so just to put it into context, what were you about 18 to 20 months on your build?
Well, it wound up, I went back and looked it up because I kept telling everybody a year and a half. My son said, no, that's not right. So we went back and looked. It was about 14 and a half months. But I was also building 10 droids at that time because we were working on season 3 of The Mandalorian. So in that time, I built 9 other droids and the probe droid in 14 months. So
yeah.
So if I was just working on the probe droid and if I had more printers, I probably could have gone quite a bit faster.
I mean, I think mine came in at about 10 months. Mine was around a 10-month build, which some people take 2 or 3 years on a single R2.
Yeah.
It's to get something this size to a specific deadline, such as celebration or filming or something like that. It was a massive undertaking. For me, I wasn't going to do a full scale Imperial probe droid. I was humming and hawing between 75% scale, which is still an impressive size. That's still nearly 3 feet in diameter. Over the 100%, just because of the sheer logistics and the amount of material. At 75%, the material drops down to about 25 kilos. It's about half the amount of materials. And then Disney announced Celebration London 2023. And as soon as that announcement was made, that was it. My mind was made up. It was go big or go home. And I think even before some of the UK builders had got back on their flight, I'd already started printing.
We talked a lot. You and I talked a lot before you hit the go button, and I told you you can do it. You know, just do it, and
I
you
did. Yeah,
you were the only one of all the people I was talking to at the time. You were the only one who was willing to do it, because I was trying to egg on a lot of people, even locals, to do it, and nobody wanted
really.
to. Nope.
That's crazy, Brits.
Yep. There's always one, sometimes two.
So obviously in Mike's case, we know where he's storing it. It's right behind him. But Tom, where
did that come from?
Yeah, I mean, Tom, where do you store yours? I mean, I know you got a lot of projects on.
I'm quite fortunate that I share a 40-foot shipping container with a friend. So the Imperial probe droid currently resides in a 40-foot shipping container when he's not out and about.
I guess you're not storing it made up, but
no, it's all collapsed down off the frame. He's all stacked in his respective parts, but the base that I made for him is probably about 2 inches wider than what the actual probe droid is. So he sits on top of the base and just stacks up. So he's like a lump, probably nearly 4 feet wide and probably the best part of 5 feet tall without the legs on. His overall height when he's on his stand is he's just shy of 10 feet. Just shy of 10 feet tall. And the main reason for that is if I went over 3 meters, it put him into a whole different health and safety category. So he's about an inch under 3 meters without his aerials extended.
I must admit, I remember it being big, but it never actually quite clocked how big it was. Maybe because everything else was going on, just couldn't.
Are they
One of
both
the
the
few-
same size? Because obviously you've both got different frames.
Yeah, his is taller. He had to go bigger.
I had to go
Yeah,
bigger.
mine's the short one. Mine only goes up to about 8.5 feet.
Yeah.
Some would say that's more
antennas.
manageable.
So
In classic Americans v Brits, the Brits won this round.
Yeah, yeah. But my arms move. So
At the moment.
there's no competition here at all. And you know what? I will say this: everybody is encouraging. That's it. You know, we rib each other, but honestly, I was so excited to see him finish. And you know, everybody is encouraging in the builders group, and we just want to see these things out so people can enjoy them.
Totally. That's I didn't build it to sit in the corner of a dining room on show or anything like that. He'll go out to any event that I can logistically get him to. It's not just as simple as throw it in the back of the car and turn up at your little convention in your local village hall. There's a lot of considerations to take into account. You need serious access for loading. You need flat floors to be able to drive him around. You've got to make sure your ceilings are high enough.
Doorways.
Yeah, doorways. I mean, he won't mind being over 9 feet tall. He won't fit through a standard doorway, and it's not something that you can just take apart just to get him through the door. There's a lot of considerations before you can even think about putting him in the van to take him down the road. He's not designed as a static prop. He's designed as like a living, moving, iconic piece of history.
Well,
I imagine that's what most people realise. It's they don't realise when they're asking for it. It's like, oh wait, it moves. It's like, yeah.
Well, at that height, it looks so impressive going through crowds because you can see it a mile away. It's above everyone. Just so intimidating. And yeah.
You add that iconic pulsing noise of it moving, and it does. People are in fear of it. People say, "Oh my god, that scared them."
Everybody knows that sound. Everybody. If you're a Star Wars fan, you know that sound. People would come running because they would hear it, and they said, "I knew it was somewhere. You know, I could hear it."
Any regrets
Ooh.
during the build process or since you've finished?
I do have a few regrets. I did not sand this to the level that I would have been happy with. You know, I can still get up close and find areas that are still not perfect. I would love to build, it sounds crazy, I'd love to build a second one and do it right, you know, and really go in and get it glassy smooth and just perfect. But we were in a time crunch for what I was doing, and so we cut a couple corners. There are areas that you can't see easily. Oddly enough, though, I was focusing on getting the head and all that smooth, not thinking they'd be 8 feet off the ground. So the parts that look best, you can't see. They're up above you. The parts that I didn't spend as much time on are underneath, which is what everybody sees. So yeah, that's my regret.
In an ideal world, he could be finished better, but I certainly don't. For me, I don't regret it. I'm just pleased to have the only one in the UK. And
all of Europe.
You're like they say, you're your own worst critic.
I think that's true of all droids. And the point I was going to follow up with what you were both saying there, we all, no droid is perfect, but it's the best and the happiest that you can be when you see it finished.
And ultimately, when the public see it, they don't see the flaws. They just go, "Oh my god!
Oh my god! It's the Imperial probe droid. It's Wally. It's Chopper. Yeah. It's like, oh my god!" In the case of Chopper, who sat in the corner of the room, oh my god! It's R2D2.
Yeah.
The number of times, the little war criminal has been called R2D2 is unbelievable. And I'm like, nope. Going back to the regret question, there is one regret that I do have, and that's I'm not able to drive it down the street. I'd love to be able to take him down the road, but
It'd be
the road,
perfect for Halloween.
but the
Yeah.
road conditions just don't lend themselves to that.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to take one of my other droids on the London Underground a few weeks ago down to an event in London. No way can I get the Imperial probe droid anywhere near the tube station. But
So
no,
what's your ground clearance like then on the platform?
I can't speak for Michael McMaster's. Mine is 20 millimeters.
Let's see. I think mine, I have 3-inch casters underneath. So about 4 inches of space between the platform and the ground. But I still wouldn't drive it. I mean, I've had it out on blacktop and it's terrifying. It has to be perfectly level, perfectly smooth.
Yeah.
You just can't take it over anything with a dip in it or an angle. You don't want that at an angle.
No.
Not for long.
Which again is why I deliberately went with a 20 millimeter ground clearance, because if that base tips, it's only going to tip 20 millimeters before it's grounded itself.
Now, I guess I'm going to assume the best moment during the build process is when you finally see it together. But what's been the best moment you've had with the probe droid since it's been built and and you've had it out and about?
I mean, for me, Celebration was just incredible because I had never experienced anything like that. I would have to say obviously the best moment was actually having it on set and having Jon Favreau come up, and we're about the same age and like apparently a lot of the same things, and he just couldn't believe it. He goes, "Can I touch it? Can I drive it?" And we talked about the history and all that. And I think just that moment of sitting there and talking about the history of the miniature, which actually you see the miniature more in Empire Strikes Back than you actually see the full size that was in Norway. But that was kind of a highlight, obviously. And then just you were there when I got to see it actually in the scene. That's pretty amazing.
What about you, Tom?
It's the same with all of the droids that I build. I get such a buzz from the reaction of people when they meet characters that they've only ever seen on the screen, when they meet Chopper, when they meet the Imperial probe droid and actually it's driving around, and it's just people are like, oh my god, that's amazing. I'd never thought I'd see one in real life. I've seen it on the screen. I know what it does. I know the sound. That sound has haunted me for years. And then when it's driving around, people are just in awe of it, and it is just such an amazing experience to be part of that, and to be known as there's such a small group of people who have built these actually through to completion, and even less that have engineered them in such a way that they drive around, the dome spins, the lights work, the full sound, and in Michael's case, the legs all actuating and moving and things like that. There's so few of us.
Yeah, literally, you can count on one hand.
There's probably been more people on the moon.
Yeah, triple that. Yeah.
I know that I'm quite safe in the knowledge that there's not going to be many of them about.
That's the highs. What about the lows? How do you keep yourself going when you've got parts everywhere and things are going wrong? And yeah, how do you keep yourself going in those situations?
I've had many times over 40 different builds. I've had to walk away. Like, you get frustrated, you start making mistakes, you just don't feel like you're making progress. I literally, I'll take a day or 2 or 3 sometimes and have to walk away from it, clear my head. And a lot of times I go online and I watch, I'm part of a lot of build groups, and I watch other people and they're succeeding and they're doing things, and you get a little discouraged. But for me, watching others finish encourages me a little bit. I'm like, oh, I can do it. I got to get back on it. but sometimes you need a break because it can be a lot.
Yeah, yeah, it certainly on a build of this scale it can get overwhelming. And like for me, it was because of the amount of time that it takes to print a single part, the amount of material that it takes to print a single part. There's some single parts that are 50, 60 pound to print. And when you're finishing it, when you're assembling it, you don't have the luxury of time. You don't have the luxury of money to be able to mess it up. And for me, if I'm not in the right headspace, I won't go anywhere near it because I cannot afford to mess it up, have to reprint things that take 5 or 6 days and 4 kilos of filament for one part. I've got to make sure that I do it and I do it right first time.
I suppose we're lucky in the case of us three Brits. This is a hobby for us, for the most part. But Michael, in your case, part of this is your job, isn't it? I mean, building droids. So you got deadlines to go to, and
yeah, we have a lot of deadlines. You know, I initially hadn't planned to make the legs work, but then production asked, well, do the legs work? And I said they can. They say, can you have it ready in however many weeks? Because by then we were, I think, 8 weeks from shooting, and that's really when I started on the legs. And I'd already printed them. I just hadn't figured out how I'd make them move. I thought they'd just be posable until they requested it. So they kind of pushed me to go the extra mile and make them move. But then we had to figure out how to do it and how to make it all be relatively in scale with the one that was in Norway, but be functional. And because the full-sized one never had functioning legs. It was fastened to a base plate that could rotate. And I think only the head moved and the antennas. It was only the miniature that was animated, you know, a stop motion that had legs that moved. So we were doing something that had never been done, and we had X number of weeks to do it. So that was very stressful. But that's kind of par for the course. We always have, you know, a lot of work to do in a short amount of time.
Did you get any, did Dave work with you on the modifications for the legs, or did you center that yourself with?
No, I knew that I had to have functioning actuators. So I found actuators that were close in size, modified them. Fortunately, the company was willing to give me all the information on the size of the shaft on it, you know, and thread, you know, is 8mm threads and all of that, you know, that so we had to tap and build our own assemblies. Basically took their linear actuators, took them apart and rebuilt them so they'd be the proper length for each one of these is a different length. No two are alike because they're different lengths and leverages, and they can only go so far before they bind up. And so even after building them, you know, to the right length, you still had to program each one so they could only travel so far. And yeah, so Dave didn't get to do anything there because he modeled a 3D version, just a static version. But when I asked him about it, he's like, good luck.
So controlling it, how do you guys control it? What are you using?
I got a little
controller.
I got a little 60 quid RC transmitter in mine. In the grand scheme of things, I've got he runs on 3 channels, three RC channels. I've got my main drive, which is forwards, backwards, left and right on 2 channels. Then I've got dome rotation on 1 channel, and then all the lights and antennas are just run off RC switch units, run off the auxiliaries. I know that you've got additional transmitters because of the legs and the additional animation that you've got, but yeah, it's simpler to run than an R2D2.
Yeah, I've got similar setup. My primary radio is exactly the same as Tom's as far as operating the antennas, turning the dome, turning lights on and off, and then the drive. Then I have a second remote, which is just for legs because there are 5 legs with several points of articulation, so they're all, you know, mixed together. And then I have my son carries an iPad that has all the sounds, and so he can cue up all the sounds.
Yeah, I had similar sort of setup. Instead of using an iPad, I was using my iPhone with a soundboard app, and I was able to have that mounted onto my transmitter. So it's just a simple case of right, well, I'm going to loop this track while I'm driving around, and
What projects are you now both currently working on that you can talk about, obviously? I happen to know Tom's, but
I think we all know.
Go ahead, Tom.
this all come about because of a conversation I had with Dave Moog from Droid Division. I've been wanting to build a gonk droid for ages. It's been one of the things on the list I've wanted to do, and obviously everything else took a back seat when I was doing the Imperial probe droid. So I finally got round to printing one. And the original files were not fully 3D printed. They were designed to have Sintra or Fomex panels rather than printing the full flat side. It had flat panels that fitted in, so you just built like an open frame and then filled it in. I do a bit of 3D designing myself, so I thought, do you know what, it's just going to be easy for me to just create the right size panel, print it, and just fit it in place. And I was chatting to Dave, and he said, leave it with me. And then about 24 hours later, he'd sent me over a full set of files for the gonk droid that he had updated, and he'd added a lot of tricks and lessons that he's learned over the last couple of years of 3D printing, whereas the original one was very, very screen accurate. It was not designed with 3D printing in mind. Now that he's learned a lot, it's still screen accurate, but it's a lot more printable, a lot easier to print. So I was like, right, cool. So I've spent the last 6-7 days printing a full-size gonk droid. And as I was getting into it, I just sort of like, I said, oh, just a curiosity, Dave, any chance you could just like print me a plain section? It's probably only going to be about 230, 240 millimeters wide, just of the side and the top of the tub. He went, well, what do you want that for? And I said, well, looking at it and looking at the images on the screen, the PLNK droid, which had always been animated during the Clone Wars, but it more recently featured in episode 4 of the Book of Boba Fett, which is the 4-legged gonk droid, the PLNK that's walking around. And he went, leave it with me. And about 90 minutes later, he'd done some jiggery pokery on his design system, and he'd worked out how long it actually needed to be. And whereas I guesstimated the panel at being 230, 240 millimeters, he comes, actually, it's 220 millimeters. So yeah, that will fit on the printer, no issues. So hot on the heels of just having printed a full-size gonk droid, I'm now printing a full-size PLNK droid, which between the two of them, I think I'm looking at about 36, 37 kilos of filament between the two droids. Kind of my reasoning for them is I need storage. Now, why do I want to go and buy a box that's just going to sit there under the table or go back in the van? Why not build some big storage tubs on legs and actually store my droids in droids? So then when I'm at a convention, I can empty my storage, and not only have I got some pretty looking storage, I've got some pretty looking droids stood next to them as well. So
That's
Yeah,
brilliant. I like
crazy.
that.
Crazy. This is what we're talking about, Tom.
so I'm now in the process of printing droid shaped storage tubs.
anything you're working on, Mike? Got any projects you're doing for yourself?
So right now I've got Chopper has come back. That's the Lucasfilm Chopper. He's here for a little maintenance. And then Robbie. So Robbie the robot is my next project.
All right, cool.
I've kind of been on and off it for quite a while. So this one is fiberglass. Go back this way. So I 3D printed Robbie first, and then we made molds. The molds are enormous, but we made molds of it so we can make a fiberglass version, so that now we can make copies. So that's what this is. A guy named Norman Sockwell produced the where is it? There it is. The clear dome that goes over the top, which is enormous. I mean, you can see Chopper next to him. I mean, it's a huge PETG vac formed dome, and Yeah, so I'm excited to get back on it and get it done. And then I want to build, since we did finish Maximilian last week, we want to make a Vincent and a Bob, old Bob, from the movie The Black Hole. And I've got, see if you can see him here, working on a new Wally. So this one, I'm actually building all the dings and dents into it. I print it and then I cut it open and I sculpt it with epoxy clay. So this will be Wally 2.0. It'll have a lot more animated features. The arms will articulate. It will have hands and fingers that move, and the body will move, and the neck is going to move. It's going to be way more advanced than the original Wally that I built.
Nice.
Somewhere down the road, I'll finish it. I'll eventually finish it.
I guess that's another droid, Tom. You could maybe turn into a storage box, like a little parts bin inside it.
Oh yeah,
It is one of the ones. It is on the list of things that I really, really, really want to do.
It's on my list.
However,
yeah. There's a lot to Wally because it was all scratch built, the first one, and we're trying to make treads that are mechanical that work in the real world, but they have to look just like they did in the animated movie, and they take a lot of liberties. So you're reverse engineering things and trying to hide some of the mechanisms, and he's heavy. I mean, the first one, it's as light as I could make it. It was still 210 pounds. The new one, I'm going to try to shrink that down even further. I'm going to mold the body and make fiberglass cube. The head will be printed out of ASA, which is lightweight but a little bit more durable. And yeah, everything I'm working on, the arms and the hands are ASA, and which I hadn't used before, but it's actually a pretty good material. It has a very high heat tolerance, which is important here. If I leave anything in the car in the summer, if it's PLA, it turns to a blob. So
luckily in the UK, I don't have to worry about that so much.
yeah, you don't have that problem, do you? Not.
I mean,
Wow.
you said that in the presence of someone who lost a droid in the sun.
Yeah. Styrene droid.
Yeah, he weren't
It
a
happen,
3D.
can it?
He weren't a 3D printed droid.
No. Styrene droid left in the car all day. Not a good idea. Warped it.
Oh.
So he's currently he's probably just out of shot, but he's being stripped down to build the new one around the corner.
I mean, we all have building a chopper in common, but what's the favorite droid you've ever built? Anything?
Wow. For me, it's probably going to be Wally, because that was the first thing I built top to bottom from scratch, and Chopper was right behind it. I got the Chopper job because they wanted to see if I had built anything. I showed them Wally, and that got me the job. So Wally and Chopper probably, because they're handmade. There's no 3D printing. There's no machining. There's no parts I bought from anybody. They're both 100% built right here.
Old school.
Old school. Yeah, the kids wouldn't believe me. Yep.
For me, as much as it was an amazing experience doing the Imperial probe droid, the fun that I have with Chopper, taking him out and about, and again, this is where I don't know what level of mentality I sit on, because I think every other chopper that I've seen in the UK is on 3 legs. Everyone else seems scared to run him constantly in 2-leg mode, so he's stood up driving around. I had him in 3 legs for about half an hour, put him into 2-leg mode, and that's where he stayed ever since. And I'm very calculated with him, with where I drive him. But he'll drive at people, he'll drive up ramps, he'll nudge people out the way because they're in his way. You've got to. It's not just driving a droid; it's you're puppeteering a character, and an established character with something like Chopper or Wally and things like that. So you've got to play to their personality and their character. And Chopper's a cantankerous little bugger, so he won't wait for people to move out of his way. He'll start nudging them in the leg. It's sort of like, get out of my way, I'm coming through. and he'll just mumble and drive off. And
Yeah,
it's sort of like, even as puppeteering, people, I don't know whether you've done it, people will ask him for a photo, and he just turns around and drives off.
Yeah.
Drive him off.
Yeah,
I-
this celebration, I've had him there taking photos, and then all of a sudden they just do the great big sigh and just drive off. Yeah, had enough,
Yeah.
giving up.
Yeah, it's Celebration London. It took a while to get from the Droid Builders area up to the Steam area, and I was up in between both of them quite regular. And like, people always want to stop for photos. It would take 40 minutes to move what is maybe a 10-minute walk because of the crowds and people stopping. And the nice thing about Chopper is you can be that cantankerous little thing that says, "No, I'm not taking a photo today."
That's
Yeah.
in character.
Yeah.
It is. The other
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are limits to that because a little kid, you're going to stop.
Yeah.
If it's an adult, you can get away with it and driving off.
I mean, it's all about playing to your audience, isn't
Yeah.
it? And that's where that skill as a puppeteer and a droid operator, it's about playing that moment. The other one that I like to do is when you've got a lot of people and a lot of droids, and obviously 9 times out of 10 you're always going to have an R2D2 somewhere. If R2D2's out and about, I like to follow him close proximity with Chopper. Then when somebody stops R2D2 for a photo, just drive Chopper straight into the middle of the photo and in front of R2D2. Just photobomb them. The number of pictures there are of the Chopper that I've built just photobombing other R2D2s is unbelievable.
That's the best. That's on brand.
Yeah, gets in the way, photobombs it, and then just drives off, grumbling. It's great.
So going back to the 2-leg mode, when you posted those photos up of Chopper on the subway, on the tube, it's just like, for one thing, I cannot believe you actually managed to drive Chopper onto London Underground successfully, but you're doing it in 2-leg mode as well.
Yeah.
I had reservations about driving down my local high street, which admittedly is cobbles on 3 legs, but to do London on 2 legs, it's just like there's that level of insanity creeping up again. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, like, either someone plants the little idea of a crazy project or doing something crazy, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Tom. I've never done that ever.
So, for all the viewers who are watching this, we will share for the end of this video. We will link to a video of John going for a ride on the Imperial Probe Droid at Celebration. I think this is one of those times where John made a little innocent comment about sitting on it. I'm like, what's stopping you? Do it. So we did.
Yeah. And the crowd gathered and everyone wanted to film it and take a photo.
Yeah.
It was just at the end of the day, just before we wrapped up, and people just really enjoyed that moment. I think it was something fun that came out of just a daft little comment.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Is doing this sort of thing. It's about having fun. It's about, I do it to make people smile. I'm in it to make people smile. That's it. I love to take them out. I love for little my son. He's 5 years old, so he's grown up with these, and just to see him at a convention walking alongside Chopper, talking to Chopper.
Yeah.
It's just heartwarming. The number of comments, even just driving him through the centre of London, because it was so unexpected. People are like, "Oh my God, that's so amazing! Thank you so much. That's made my weekend." It's just that's what it's all about for me. That's why I do it.
Yeah, I think it's the same for all of us. I mean, we've had comments recently about a droid that we helped with for Loz, and someone had seen that droid at a local event, and my friend knew the person, and she said, "Can you get a message passed on?" So I passed it on, and it like, people are really affected by the droids, and really enjoy it. But going back to the riding on the probe droid briefly, it's in my top 3 moments from Celebration. That it was a really enjoyable experience.
Yay!
The other one links into what we're currently talking about, the top one, where a little girl had made she coloured in a little Chopper painting that they were doing for one of the Steam activities. She'd seen Chopper out wandering around and came up and brought it to him. And it turns out one of my friends was there, and he took a photo of Chopper taking the coloured in little Chopper off this little girl, and it was just like one of those really sweet, really nice moments that like she'd obviously like really enjoyed it. And then obviously the second of the top 3 is I've got a wonderful picture of Mr. McMaster looking down at Chopper like a proud father, giving it the nod of approval, which made me proud as a builder at that moment, because I'd been talking to Mike for a long time during the build.
Well, and Dave Filoni was prophetic about all that, because when he first hired me to build this one, he said, I want one before the R2 builders get wind of it and they make 100 of them. And that came to pass. They're everywhere. He said there's no convention he attends where he doesn't encounter a Chopper. And he loves it because he is Chopper.
Yeah.
You know, he's the voice of Chopper. And he's really proud. Obviously, he's very proud of Ahsoka, but he's also extremely proud of Chopper. So,
yeah, no, it's the whole droid building thing is just it's so great, and it's the community itself. If it's something that you're thinking about doing, building the droid is brilliant, but the community that you end up getting involved with is just it's phenomenal. Just the community itself, chatting to people who like yourself, Michael, over in California, other side of the world, to me over in America, the amount of time that we've spent chatting, and to someone like me, I admire what you do, the fact that you are in the industry, you've built stuff for TV and film and Disney and all that sort of thing. So it's sort of like you're getting up there to be like one of my heroes, and to meet you and just spend so much time with you at Celebration, just talking like normal people and just everything droids and things like that.
there's nothing normal about you, Tom.
Yeah,
When you say normal people, these are droid builders you're talking about. So, but, I will have to say some of my best friends have come from the droid builders group here in the States and in the UK, all over the world, really. But I mean, some of my closest friendships are with droid builders, because I guess we're like-minded. We understand each other, similar interests. I don't know. We love Star Wars and nerdy things.
Yeah, it is. So for anyone watching this and seeing this, you're not only building a droid, you're getting part. You're becoming part of such an amazing community that it will help anyone out. We all help each other out, which is what it's all about. That's probably about 60-70% of the droid building is the community.
Yeah.
And you don't need to have those skill sets either. People say, "Oh, I didn't join because I don't know how to build something or do electronics." You'll learn. Trust me, you'll learn. I've learned so much in this group. I've learned skills I never thought I would ever have. But everybody's patient and very willing to give of their time and their expertise. And it's a wonderful community, like Tom said.
I suppose that's the main thing, isn't it? We're collaborative. We're not competitive with each other, or we are in a little bit in a way. So I'm going to build mine quicker than yours, but we're not withholding stuff. We want people to succeed. We want people to get those droids out there and help make raise money for charity and make people smile and make people's day. We want those people to be helping us, and because you never know when they're going to help you back in some cases.
Yeah, totally. I mean, ultimately, I'd love to see more Imperial probe droids built. If someone comes and asks me with questions, I'll answer them as best as I can, and I'll even give them in hindsight as well. Actually, I did it this way. However, in hindsight, this might be a better way. So they can improve on it and make life easier or better for themselves. I will certainly pass on that knowledge to anyone who wants to listen to me.
And I
definitely.
guess it's worth saying in the most collaborative way possible, you've just ruined our last question by talking about that, because that was the last question. What would you tell anybody who wanted to join this community and start down these processes, even from small droids to big droids? But you've answered it already.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, do it. I mean, from there's such a variety of droids for all different levels and size of printers, and things like that. I mean, two of probably the most the best resource availables for 3D printed droids. You've got Droid Division and Michael Baddeley's 3D printed droids. And I would out of 3D printed droids, those two are top tier for what you can get and what you can do. They don't
And the
compete with each
communities
other.
around them as well.
Yes, yeah, totally. And the support from Droid Division, Michael Baddeley, and all the whole community of builders is just phenomenal. They don't step on each other's toes. Droid Division handle all the static droids. You've got your battle droids, your IGs, your gonks, interrogator droids, pit droids. Pit droids are by far probably one of the popular ones.
Yeah.
For full size pit droid, I think they stand about 42 inches high, 3.5 kilos of filament, and it's printable on a small Ender 3 printer. A few bolts. It's a great way to learn 3D printing, 3D print finishing and painting, or you can just print it in colored filaments, bolt it together, and you've got an amazing looking full-size prop stood in your living room.
Said you've answered the pit droid beard. If it looks beat up, if it looks like it's got flaws, that's the whole point of a pit droid. They get smashed to pieces, rebuilt, scratched, and they carry on going.
Yeah.
If it looks rough, doesn't matter.
And then on the flip side, you've got the Michael Baddeley 3D printed droids, which are designed to be animated, driven, and interact with people with animations, arms, periscopes, lights, the whole shebang. You can make it as simple or as complicated as you want to do. But some of the little droids, you can start off with a little R2D2 about that tall that you can get finished over a weekend.
One of these ones.
Yeah, one of those ones. Going up to a full size R2D2. It's within the grasp of anyone, really.
So yeah, thanks both of you for your time there. It's, having seen both probe droids, it truly is an awesome experience, and thanks for sharing your experience building them and operating them and being builders. It's awe-inspiring seeing some of the things that people do in the community, but the droids itself are awe-inspiring in this case, and excited to see what both of you do in the future.
Well, thanks for having it.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. I've really enjoyed it. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Again, this came from a silly what if conversation with Andy.
Yeah.
Careful what you wish for.
It might happen. Right, I want a fully sized 3D printable X-Wing.
Oh, sure. We'll start tomorrow.
Excellent. Thanks again, guys. And,
yes, I'm sure we could sort something.
And we'll hope to see you sometime soon.
Right.
No worries.
Thanks so much.
Been a pleasure. Thanks very much.